That's not a very exciting trade.
What, Muscala?
We ready?
I'm ready whenever.
All right.
Are you guys ready?
Okay. All right. Live BS podcast. I'm Bill Simmons. That's Ryen Russillo. Is this the highlight or the low light of your career?
No, this is awesome, man.
This is great. It's 11:30 Pacific time.
Yeah.
Have you adjusted to the early trade deadline on the West Coast?
I was up early today. We were texting at 6 a.m. Were you surprised you get a text back from me as soon as you did?
I was. I'm always
Yeah.
surprised when anybody without kids texts me before like 8.
Yeah, we were right on it.
I was
like,
feeling you're either still awake, you had an all-nighter,
Yeah.
you were just really going.
I prepped for this by staying up all night.
So we have one of the wonkiest trade deadlines we've ever had, and I have a theory on this. I wanted to throw it at you.
Okay.
I think all the contracts are shorter now, and the teams are smarter, and everybody is on like these 1 year, 2 year, these fat deals, and this is the first year it all came to fruition, where just everybody had expirings and extra picks, and it is turning into like NBA 2K. This is more trades than I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, we're already ahead of, I think, like this season, all of what you had last year. I think they were almost tied with it last night. So I don't know how many more are going to kick in the next 20-something minutes here. What do we got? Less than 30 minutes to go.
It feels like we're going to have a couple, right?
Do you want to start
Oh,
with
we got another one as we're talking. Scal Labassiere for Caleb Swanigan.
Wait a minute.
Blockbuster.
The Kings got rid of a Wildcat? Those are the good ones. The good ones are when you almost forget which team he's on.
And then right before we came on was the big Laker trade.
Right. Mike
Zubac
Muscala. Yeah, why
for
would you want to trade
Muscala?
Zubac? I don't.
Nobody wants Muscala's dad in their locker room, I think, is what it's going on.
Well,
After
now
the
that
Jimmy
Lavar's
Butler
back.
stuff. Yeah, Lavar. So my theory on Lavar, which was that the Lakers had paid him to shut the hell up or had some talk with him or intervention. But as soon as they started trying to trade his son, he's like, I'm back. Screw you guys.
Absolutely.
And now he's back.
He's back. I had more. Well, let me put it this way. I don't know that I had a ton of respect for him because the requests are absurd. I mean, he was saying today on Cowherd Show that he was upset that the Lakers wouldn't put his sons on the summer league team.
Yeah.
And, I mean, it was kind of ridiculous. And then I would have had more respect for him if he hadn't shutting up. Like, it would have annoyed everybody. But, like, you went dark for 2/3 of the season.
So do you agree with my theory that
Something was said because LeBron.
some cash was paid?
Part of it was that LeBron was like, I don't want to come here if this guy's going to be ripping me
Yeah.
after the game. And he ripped LeBron. He said in today's interview, he was like, now he just falls down and gets hurt. So it's just nuclear against everybody. He called out Magic. He called out ownership. He hates Luke Walton. And he was like, I want all three of my sons to play for the Phoenix Suns. So it's good to see that he's back while his shoes are not delivered on time.
I still have Lonzo stock, but I'm not feeling great about it.
No, but I think there's some things about him that are really special. His
Me
vision
too.
is special. His transition game is special. His understanding of
His
one-on-one
defense is
defense
special.
is
Yeah.
great. And then also like the concept of team defense. He's really like to think he's only been out of high school a few years, and I'll see him do certain things where he reads things terrifically. I like him, but he's kind of like a Simmons in that Ben Simmons can only be the best version of him with a perfect roster around him. And
True.
I think Lonzo's kind of like that too.
Phoenix will be fun for him. Let's break through what we have. Well, I'll go in order of just things that have shocked me so far. So let's start with the Lakers. Or do you want to start with the Eastern Conference, how two playoff teams got better? You pick.
I think it's the Lakers because the Anthony Davis thing has been the dominant thing here for weeks. I think
It was
it's still
one of the
most
all-time
important.
one of the all-time backfirings I can remember. This whole big strategy they tried to execute to basically pigeonhole the Pelicans into trading Anthony Davis to them. And unfortunately for them, the Pelicans didn't go for it. Weren't interested. And I think they really underrated this widow that owns the team, who is not used to how traditional basketball goes, who is, by everything I've heard, everyone I've talked to is kind of like, why do I have to trade him? He's got a year and a half left on his deal. What are these guys talking about? What if we just kept him? And I don't think they saw that coming.
I don't think they did it at all. And I actually think it was kind of an underrated element to this whole thing, where normally I think Clutch would say, okay, here's how it works. We've got LeBron, and whatever combination of this is or whatever we say it isn't, we know we usually get our way. Okay, so history is we get our way. So if we want to get Anthony Davis out of there with a year and a half left on his contract, we have to make some noise. We have to make this ugly.
Monday morning,
right.
news dump to Woj,
Right.
get the news cycle going. Now I'm on First Take. Now I'm on Cowherd Show. I'm going through PTI. I've started the day.
Right, and honestly, I think they did it too late, okay?
Yeah.
But they are dealing with a set of circumstances that, I have contacts down there. Like, I understand it, I think maybe better than other people do, in that you have an ownership that basically inherited the Pelicans, okay? And it's the Benson ownership that also owns the Saints. In the beginning, it's new and it's kind of fun. It's like, man, this Pelicans thing is great. Look how great Anthony Davis is. And then you start realizing, like, attendance isn't as good.
Attendance is bad. Well,
right.
the thing you left out is they basically bought the team not because they wanted to own a basketball team, because they felt real civic duty
to the city. Yeah.
The Saints owner felt bad, and he decided to buy the team at a time when the values were in the tank. And then this became this huge asset, and I think that's the other thing to watch is, like, there's really no teams available right now, and they have this team, and they clearly are football first. So why trade Anthony Davis when I don't know if they're going to own the team 5 years from now?
I don't even know if it'll be that long.
Yeah.
And look, the civic duty's true, but also when they bought it and what they're going to end up making on it, it's going to end up being another great investment, as most of these franchises. And being like, I'd still like to read the piece for all the ownership complaints about revenue and all these things. I would love to see a 60 Minutes or a 30 for 30 on the guy that actually lost money on buying one of these things.
Oh, my God.
It doesn't happen. But
well, also look at the fact that what teams are available right now. Like, when they were having real problems in 2008, 2009, 2010, there were 12 teams on the market, and people were actively like, oh, shit, attendance is down. It might be time to get out. Nobody wants to get out now.
No, not at
one
all.
person.
Because, even with the rights and the TV stuff and everybody going, okay,
streaming,
there couldn't possibly, like, I actually think it might still be the safest bet.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you're still trying to figure out, like, from an entertainment standpoint, like, how are we going to get eyes on us? And I don't know if there's a better bet than the live sports thing. But back to the Davis thing, I don't think the media, I don't think Clutch Sports, I don't think anybody truly understood the challenges of Dell Demps in this GM role. He doesn't know how long he's going to be there. There's all sorts of rumors. So now you're dealing with kind of a lame duck general manager. Yeah. You're dealing with a football operation that has the final say on a basketball player, an ownership situation where I'm not sure she even truly understands how everything works. And it's like, so wait a minute. So we're supposed to just take the Lakers deal because we're just supposed to? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Because he's like, I'm only signing with the Lakers.
Yeah.
They're like, so what? You're under contract. You signed a contract 3.5 years ago. You have a year and a half to go. You don't have a say in this. I mean, you can tell us what you'd like. That's great. But unfortunately, everybody we're being offered right now, there's not a single guy who has a chance to be an all-star. You posted on Twitter today, Tatum versus Ingram. I don't think that's a contest. I think Tatum's ceiling, even the way he's playing now, he's just better than Ingram. I'm not even really positive what Ingram is. I don't, like, if he's one of my best three guys on a finals team, where's he playing? Is he a creator? He's not really a three-point shooter. What is he?
Yeah, Ingram's interesting because I don't.
I'm not against him. I
don't
think he's a sure thing by any means.
No, whenever this deal was coming out, right, as it was building. So we saw the Saturday night rumors that they showed during the Lakers Golden State game, and it was the four pieces, right? And then on Monday it turns into basically all five young guys. We'll take back Solomon Hill. We'll throw you 2 first-round picks, and it just starts building. And as it was building, everybody's doing this. Well, now you have to take it. Now you have. That's not the way this league works. You have to make sure that the one piece that you're getting back amidst all the names is really important. And if the one name, if the best is Brandon Ingram or Kuzma, if you're the Pelicans, forget all the challenges of what's going on with that franchise. If you're sitting there going, why am I supposed to do this now? Like, I don't think the number one piece at the top of this pile of assets is that attractive.
You have to get a blue chipper back, and the course of NBA history says almost every time this goes badly for the team that is trading the superstar.
Every time.
And it's always like you're getting Eric Gordon back as a centerpiece. Oh, he's great. He's got a ton of potential, and then he never gets to where he's going to go. That's why I was so intrigued by the Ben Simmons for Davis. And by the way, I heard that there were conversations on both sides with that.
That one would make a little bit more sense because you'd have the rookie control. Because the Porzingis stuff, of course they called Anthony Davis on Porzingis, but the Knicks knew Porzingis wasn't going to help them facilitate trades at all,
right?
Which is, I think, why that happened so quickly. And New Orleans, despite all the challenges and the frustrations of how they've built the roster around him and all the injuries and now in a second coach, like I get some of Anthony Davis's concerns. But New Orleans isn't going to sit there and trade him for somebody else who's not re-signing in a market that very few guys are ever going to want to go to.
Yeah.
So
well, and the thing is, where is New Orleans 3 years from now? If you're going to tell me they're definitely going to be in New Orleans and I'm Ben Simmons, and all these guys care about their brand and all that stuff, why would I want to stay in New Orleans, especially if they're not a very good team? But like if they're in Seattle in 3 years, that's a lot more enticing, I think, to the way these under 30 superstars kind of think. You know, it's like, oh, I'm in Seattle where Amazon's there. And
Yeah.
I could
have an app.
There's rich white people there, and I could have meetings and maybe get
Hi,
some stock tips.
can we get Ringer to follow around tech meetings of NBA guys?
It's
'Cause
my favorite.
I would love to know what actually happens in those.
I ask so many questions because what happens is all these guys, these rich dudes who live in like Silicon Valley or wherever, they just want to go home and tell their 8-year-old son that they met with Kevin Durant, and here's the photo that I took with him. And then when they're in that meeting, at the end of it, they're like, hey, why don't you get in on the early bird thing? We don't normally give this out, but you could buy this for this. And all of a sudden, these guys are just amassing these massive stock portfolios, basically because these dudes just want to meet them.
So they're
It's
giving them
amazing.
like the angel round stuff, but like,
Yeah.
are they guys making money on this stuff, or are they? That's the other thing.
Well, I think, they have like a friends and family thing.
Right. No, I understand like the intro rounds of
All they
kicking
want to
in.
do is like just hang out with these guys and get the picture and put the framed picture in their office of, Kevin Durant. It's like me, Jacoby, and Obama and Joe House. Just like this, where Jacoby looks like he's just been let out of a prison.
Jacoby has some good pictures out there.
So we compare and contrast LeBron right now to Michael Corleone at the end of Godfather 2, just on the bench by himself, where all of his plans, he's extinguished all his enemies, but he's all alone. Because I think that's might be the next 3 years of his Lakers career.
How bad do you think that they've played this? You were alluding to it, but I don't think you really finished it.
I think they played it horribly. Because here's the thing. I actually liked watching that Lakers team last year, and I hate the Lakers, but I thought they had a lot of potential, and I liked the way Luke Walton coached them. And
The Luke
the
Walton
All-Star break.
sucks thing, I don't
Yeah,
get.
Luke Walton's a good coach. Fuck that.
Right. I don't like that team was a couple years removed from high school, and they were good defensively.
Yeah.
That's impossible. That doesn't happen.
And playing hard and
Right.
competitively. And I think, like, I was watching Brooklyn-Denver last night.
Nice.
And Brooklyn made this huge comeback in the second or third quarter. And somebody made a play, and you could see the bench, and they're all jumping up and fist pumping. And, like, that team really likes each other. That's how the Lakers were last year in the last couple months. I felt like they were all pulling for each other. And now it's a disaster. And everybody made a big deal about the LeBron with the 3 empty seats next to him picture. And it was like, oh, actually, that guy had just gone in the game. But at the same time, it was kind of symbolic, right? These guys are playing with this dude whose agent is leaking stuff, clearly trying to trade all of them for Anthony Davis. Like, that's just not a way to have a basketball team.
The LeBron deal is unlike anything else I think we've ever seen in team sports. LeBron, as far as for all the years I've ever watched anything, maybe I'm missing somebody historically, maybe it's a Babe Ruth, but
Yeah.
I think LeBron's the most powerful individual in team sports that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And he's rewritten the rules.
Orlando trading for Markelle Fultz, by the way.
Oh, what did they get?
I don't know. I'm going to find out. Keep going.
Do you think
though.
it's
I was excited
Do
for
you think
your
it's
point.
a protected first?
I think it's DJ Augustine
And hopefully
and like
so.
a second. So LeBron's the most
Okay, so-
powerful athlete.
Right. I think he's the most powerful athlete, and I admire him for that. The joke that I've used before on TV shows and stuff is like, how people would say, they'd be defending Jordan, and Jordan could say, you're wearing my shoes.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. Well, LeBron could say, like, my agency reps you. And I know they try to say that it has nothing to do with the other. That's kind of ridiculous. So I admire that he's kind of rewritten the power rules, but he's able to do it because he's the best player. And he's been the best player here for a really long time. And grabbing LeBron, like we nitpick Harden. Are people nitpicking Anthony Davis right now? Imagine nitpicking LeBron when it's 8 straight finals. I mean,
Yeah.
It's still a good deal for the team. And yes, you're going to have to find a way to concede certain things. The orbit around him is going to be annoying at times. But the one constant, and I'm not saying he's a bad deal, but it's going to get really ugly here towards the end. And I think this could be a preview of it here with the Lakers. But like I went through it again, every single authoritative thing that he's ever had, whether it's a coach or GM or ownership. Paul Silas, they're a year plus. Jim Paxson, out. And it was because of the Boozer trade. And then we heard from Boozer last year who said, actually, LeBron told me to leave.
Yeah.
And a lot of people blamed all of these guys for losing Boozer, and that's why LeBron early on had doubts about Cleveland. Mike Brown, he let Brown get fired without telling anybody what he was going to do.
Yeah.
They bring in Byron Scott, and it's like, oh, it didn't really matter what you did.
Right.
Like, sorry you fired
I'm
Mike
leaving
Brown,
anyway.
but I was leaving anyway. He gets down there. Oh, Danny Ferry, there were issues. Chris Grant wasn't him. Spo issues early on.
Spo was on his way out.
Riley,
That first 50, 60 games, remember? It's like this guy's overmatched.
Yeah.
And also like leaks stuff that I don't think LeBron was leaking, but I do think the people around him might have a habit of putting stuff out there to make LeBron look better and other people look worse. That's been a recurring theme this whole decade.
Right. So you keep going. Riley. I thought Riley was going to have an aneurysm on that press conference when LeBron decided he was going back to – like that was real anger.
And by the way, one of my favorite moments, non-basketball, basketball moments of the decade, where you have this guy basically like, yeah, this is hard. Sometimes you lose. That doesn't mean we just throw this all away. Like, it doesn't always go your way. You got to stick together. And was basically talking about it in this idealistic way that people don't think that way anymore. It's like, this hasn't gone well. All right, what's next? Swipe right. I'm going to the next team.
Right, the next team. So you got Riley. I don't know if Mickey Aronson, if that was ever close. The Gilbert thing, I understand his animosity towards Gilbert, but he was still able to get
David
over it
Blatt.
enough. Blatt was. They were like, look, I don't think I blame anyone. I mean, Blatt was. It was a bad
Blatt
fit.
stories, yeah.
Yeah, it was a bad fit. And then Lou, I don't even think if he had gone back to Cleveland, I'm not even sure Ty Lue would have stuck around. So as soon as LeBron goes to L.A., now what are we hearing? We're hearing that Luke Walton
Well, you
sucks.
left out a couple. There were some fall guy players too, like Chris Bosh the first year. He's too soft. Oh my God, he's the lousy one out of these three. Why'd they have to bring him? And then same thing with Kevin Love. Kevin Love took a beating for those first 2 years. That was the guy LeBron recruited. I don't know. None of it ever falls on him, and it's weird because it's turning this thing where it's like if you criticize LeBron, you're a hater. I'm not criticizing.
I love
think
him, actually.
I think he's the second best player of all time. I think going to A Finals is amazing, but I think it's really not a coincidence that we've had dysfunction every single year, basically, except for maybe two since 2010, that last Cleveland season, when he held them hostage the whole year by not saying what he was going to do, and it's like goes to Cleveland, just signs 1-year deals over and over and over again. That just makes everyone uneasy. And then we have Durant last night laying into the press, and I'm so tired of hearing about free agency. It's like you're signing 1-year deals. People are going to wonder where you're playing next year if you're constantly a free agent. They do this to get attention, I think, and to keep leverage. But you're going to have to answer questions about it.
And the other thing about like LeBron's approach and kind of like with the Durant thing, LeBron doing the 1+1s.
Yeah.
And making sure like they take such pride in not revealing anything. But at some point, I think it's to the detriment of his own goals. Like you're still in a team sport, and being collaborative with ownership and a general manager is not conceding power.
Right.
And he's burnt himself sometimes with this.
Well, he did it last night. What was the Harrison Barnes Instagram post?
It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense.
You get traded at halftime.
Right.
It's a business. It's like, what are you talking about? You guys have more power than at any point in the history of the league. I'm super sympathetic to especially the guys in the 50s and 60s and 70s, but
I'm always
going
to be pro player versus manager.
Or even in football. Like football, those guys get chewed up, spit out, replaced by a 6th-round pick. In basketball, they are fairly compensated. They make a ton of money.
Yeah, I don't know in kind of the social awareness that's really developed over the last few years, because I think it's media-driven a little bit.
This is great. The players are taking control of the league. It's like, is it great?
Yeah, because I would say, all right, that's fine. Like I like that. I want to be pro player, but I also think it's fine to ask a very open-ended question and be like, at what point are we past the tipping point of this where it's absurd? What if you sign a 5-year deal and a year in, you go, I don't like this. Power to the player, empowerment. I want out of here. And be like, well, you have 4 years left in your deal. Like, what do you mean?
Well,
would the media members still say, like, good for him, flexing his muscles? Like LeBron, the audacity of him to rip the whole idea that, like, okay, it is unfair for players sometimes. Player leaves as a free agent.
Yeah, it sucks to get traded.
Right.
I get it.
You're emotional as a fan. You take it personally. The idiots that burn jerseys to try to get something to go viral. Like, that stuff's all stupid, but I understand because I remember being emotional about any one of these guys and feeling dumped when they left in free agency, right?
Yeah.
And the ruling of the ownership having the ability to go ahead and trade him. But there's still an employer-employee relationship here. Like, I can root for everyone in our business to make all the money that they can make. But I can still understand there's certain things that, like, you're still going to have to answer to as an employee. And despite making $30 and $40 million a year and being the most amazing athletes in the world, like, that contract, the right to make that money, also comes with some things that you have to concede. And this
agree.
empowerment thing that's like gained real momentum, which I think is kind of great that all the players aren't getting trashed the way you used to. We used to grow up in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
These guys just got dumped on all the time. I like how it's developed, but I think there's a tipping point where it's okay to ask how far is too far, where fans of the league are like, dude, are you serious?
Well, think
everybody
about-
just gets to complain the whole time and demand out? Like, that's how much fun is that going to be?
Think about how few happy teams there are these days.
Which ones are there? Is it Boston?
No, it's Brooklyn. Brooklyn's happy.
That should be their free agent pitch. Brooklyn, we're
Denver,
happy.
Denver seems happy.
Sacramento?
Sacramento seems happy, although they just traded like two of
Dallas?
their glue guys. Dallas, because they got rid of everybody. But nobody's happy. And then the other thing is,
Yeah, how is everybody this unhappy? I think that's
Everybody-
maybe the point.
even teams that are stuck together, like the Philly situation, they don't seem that happy. The Boston situation, this is like the greatest. Kyrie's in the best situation ever. He's got a great organization, great front office. They have a ton of picks, ton of young guys. He doesn't seem happy. So it's like, what is happy?
I don't know. I don't know what's
makes people happy.
LeBron's not happy.
LeBron-
Anthony Davis isn't happy.
Brian
You-
hasn't
you-
seemed happy for years.
Harden's thrilled because he's like, this is
This is great.
awesome.
I love these unassisted assists. I don't need anybody. But it's like, I think people don't realize sometimes as fans, just in basketball, like how tied you are to the success, failure, ebbs and flows of the other guys in your team. You know, like you had this situation. You're on a show with Van Pelt for how many years?
6 years.
If Van Pelt was a free agent like every 6 months, and every 6 months it's just stories about, is Van Pelt leaving? What's going to happen to his show? Is he going to get rid of Russillo? And you're reading leaks, and it's like they might replace Russillo with Brian Kenny. And you're just reading this stuff, and you don't know where it's coming from.
Wait a minute. Did you hear anything?
And you have to do the show every day. At some point, that's going to affect the show.
Yes.
And that's,
yeah, right.
I just think the professional unease that a lot of these guys are bringing out, that's what happened with Draymond and KD. By all accounts, when they started yelling at each other, it eventually escalated to, shut the fuck up, you're not going to be here in a year anyway. And that was the underlying thing, is these guys feel like we have a chance to win a third straight and you're going to leave, and now you're yelling at me on a basketball court? Fuck you. So,
And-
I
and
don't
the
know.
thing
It's
is, like,
all over the place.
I try to be very sympathetic about this, because they have more access to hate. Whenever I think it's a really good point. It's my point, and I'm going to repeat it. We've had, I think, of 6 or 7 of the top players in the league. Almost every one of them has had some ad campaign built around the hatred.
Yeah.
Harden, Westbrook, Durant, LeBron, Curry has done it. All of these guys have had different ad campaigns where it's addressing the hate because they have access to the hate that they've never had before. So
Right.
I get it. You know what I mean? Like if I'm pretty good, I think, with social media and how I let it bother me, but I would check it after the show. Hey, did somebody like my segment? Did somebody like what I did? Hey, was somebody into this? And if it's the wrong day and somebody says that right thing, then I could walk around and have the persecution complex because I think
Yeah.
a lot of us, it's easier to go down that road. It's easier to get in our own heads. And despite the fact that these guys are making the money they're making and are the most famous athletes in the world, it's still human nature to feel like everybody's against you. But like for Durant to have that rant that he had when the Warriors are treated really well by that city. Like what's the hardest thing Durant's really had to deal with from the media, not fans? And
No,
if
I
he's-
get it.
If he's fighting with high school kids on Instagram, that's his fault, okay? Because like that stuff's just out there. But imagine him in New York City if they're a 4 or 5 seed.
With Frank Isola going at him.
Frank just hammering him.
Frank just killing him. So I'm going to defend and excoriate Durant at the same time.
Okay.
Fundamentally, he's right. Why does he have to talk to these guys and answer stupid questions after games? Why do we still do it this way in 2018? Kevin, what were you thinking on that 3 with a minute to go? Like, who's that for? What human being? I love basketball. Who's that for? I don't care.
When's the last time you read a game recap?
Never. So I get his point on that. I get his point on, like, he obviously read that piece from Ethan Strauss, and Ethan Strauss is writing it in a way that made it seem like he's sourced close to Durant. And Durant's point was, you don't fucking talk to me. You're in the locker room every day, and we don't interact.
Would
So
Kevin have talked
why
to
would
him, though, in fairness to Ethan?
So that's the part. The part that I don't agree with is if you're going to be a free agent and this Knicks stuff is going to be sitting there the whole year, and you have all these different options to be like, you know what, man, I'm in an awesome situation. We have a chance to win 3 straight. We have a chance now to be one of the 4 best basketball teams of all time. And I'd be crazy to leave that. But he doesn't say that. He doesn't say anything. It's a lot of like, hey, man, my future is my future. I got to do what's best for me, which is fine. You can feel that way. But guess who doesn't want to hear that? Fans, the people that give a shit. If I'm a Warriors fan, I would just be like, can you imagine McHale after 1986? Celtics win. They've won 3 in 6 years. They made the finals 3 years in a row. McHale's like, I don't know, man. I got to do what's best for me. Like, we would have gone fucking crazy. What? What did we just win 67 games? We went 50-2 in the playoffs. You have to do what's best for you?
But the counter to that would be McHale, it wouldn't even enter, like that wasn't even part of the thought process of a player back then. So is it better now that a player understands his power, flexes his muscle a little bit? The thing that I think is kind of silly is like.
My question is, what are they flexing? They seem to be flexing the everything is better at the next place.
Yeah, but it's weird though because it's like
that remember in Swingers when they're in that club and they're like, we should go. This place is dead anyway.
Right.
That's like NBA's mentality now with everything. Is it Golden State good? This place is dead anyway. I'm going to go to New York. And then he's going to go to New York. He's going to be happier playing for James Dolan over this Golden State situation. Give me a break.
And that's the part that I always think is kind of funny because you're like, it's a bit like the Kyrie thing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the Jimmy, but I think the Jimmy Butler thing is like different in a whole new level where I think the market for Jimmy, it's going to be a bit of a wake-up call there. Where it's like actually 5 teams don't want to give you the max.
How about 2 years, $48 million, and you're going to like it, Jimmy?
So
who's giving him 3 years?
When I talk to teams about him that have space, they're like, nope, please.
Nope.
Now, we'll see. When they strike out on plan A, B, and C, and if Butler's still sitting there, do you talk yourself into it? Because of his talent. History will tell you a team's going to talk themselves into it.
The problem is teams now have decades and decades of evidence that if you sign the wrong person to the wrong long-term contract, you might as well dig a hole for yourself in the desert and just bury your whole team in it for 3 years. Like, look at Washington and John Wall right now.
Is that now? Well, it's definitely the most immovable contract.
That is the worst contract, I think, of all time.
It's so bad.
There's 3 years left after this one at $40 million a year. He has 2 separate, really damaging leg injuries at the same time, and he's gained weight the last couple of years. And he plays a position.
Excuse me. He has 4 years.
4 years after this?
After this year. The extension kicks in next year. 38, 41, 44, and then I'm going to go ahead and guess he's going to pick up that player option for $47 million in 2023.
You think he's going to pick that up?
I'm going to report that now.
John Wall breaking. Speaking of breaking, here's the full Markelle Fultz deal.
Oh yes. All right. I'm gonna guess. No one agrees with me. No one agrees with me. So I'm gonna make myself look like an idiot here. I'm gonna guess that there's some language that there's a first rounder, possibly.
Jonathan Simmons. So now they have 2 Simmonses.
Wing.
Protected future OKC first rounder.
Yes.
Cleveland second rounder.
Oh, nice.
That's a lot for Markelle Fultz.
I always contended there's got to be one team out there that would be willing to give you some sort of language around a first for the guy that was the number 1 pick 2 years ago.
Does this mean who's 21? It's not like he's 30.
Does this mean that Philly doesn't like the way rehab went? I mean, what else are they going to say?
How great would it be if Markelle was like, do they have Chick-fil-A in Orlando on Twitter? It would be the greatest tweet of all time.
You know what's funny about Markelle is like in the beginning when he's hurt last year, and I noticed like what a great bench guy he was.
Yeah.
And I even tweeted something out about it. I go, as bad as this has been, and you feel for the kid, anybody with a heart, I mean, you're like, man, how broken is this guy? Like this sucks.
Right.
And for the guys that know, like you can't treat him like a total bust when teams that were in the mix at the top were like, when you watch him in the under 18 or the FIBA stuff or whatever it was, they were like, he was filthy. And I'd watch him on the bench. I go, you know what? All the negative stuff, look how engaged he is. He's happy. He's smiling. He's having fun. I go, that's a great sign. And then I was watching a game not that long ago, and he was doing the same shit. And I was like, now it doesn't feel like a great sign anymore.
Maybe that's just who he is.
Yeah.
I don't know where this ranks against Darko and Thabit and some of the other ones. I remember they got a first rounder for Darko.
They did. They got, mid-first.
Thabit, I don't even think got a first rounder. I still feel like Thabit is the lost. Like they always mention Darko, they're going to mention Fultz now. Thabeet is like the lost bust that nobody mentions because everybody kind of felt like it was going to be a bust when they had him. When they took him, it was like, oh, that's going to be a bust. But like to pass on James Harden for Thabeet, rough.
The Thabeet one
Curry.
was weird because Thabeet had given you plenty of evidence at UConn that he wasn't that good anyway.
Yeah, there was
And
real concerns.
He had some aggressiveness that finally showed up. The last year was at UConn, where you go, okay,
Right.
maybe because he used to just sort of plod around, and you're like, how engaged is this guy? And then you thought, okay, well, maybe there's a little bit more there. But the Steph thing is, you didn't realize in 2 years you go, he's going to be the best shooter, top 3 handle, and the smartest. Like he was all of those things by his second year in the league. He's one of the smartest players I've ever seen, and I don't know.
I can't believe this Steph Curry thing. I can't believe. In the moment, it was crazy.
As it was happening, him
falling to 7 was,
Rubio, Johnny Flynn.
It was just crazy in the moment. I was doing my draft diary that day. I've been wrong in the draft diary, but that one, it was like, what is happening? We just watched this guy. This guy had a command of the moment and has these skills that how does this not translate to the NBA? It seemed impossible.
There was this weird
There's
thing
some
though,
ankle
like
shit with him though.
right, but then they also switched him to point guard. It was almost like Davidson allowed his last year to be an entire NBA tryout, which
Right.
was really weird. I think
I
it turned off some people. It turned me off. You liked it, but
Hey, I have some breaking news.
yeah,
from
keep it coming.
Joe Varden.
This is well timed.
Joe Varden, senior writer for The Athletic, based in Cleveland. Anthony Davis's agent, Rich Paul, tells me Davis is not being traded today.
That was literally.
Hey, Joe, I could have told you that 16 hours ago.
Well, it's official.
It's official.
At least now we know what we can do.
I love that Rich
final
Paul,
hour.
Rich Paul grabbing some ownership over last night, that deal being dead, and the Pelicans being like,
Okay, do you think though? So the rest of the season, I think because of your background's a writer.
yeah,
That all writers love the most dramatic version of stories.
yeah.
And that's your.
We gravitate toward the
Right.
giant angles.
It's the reason that makes you successful, and also
Thank
I think has flaws in some of the ways we approach stories.
Agree. I've created a monster now.
Do you think it really matters that maybe everybody in the Lakers is pissed at LeBron the rest of this season?
So
And if you believe that that's the case,
here's what does matter.
it's not just the picture.
Here's what does matter. He went to a team that he is now not going to succeed with, and he is somebody that made the finals for 8 years in a row, basically. And he went to L.A., and I think he thought, I'm going to go to L.A., and other guys will come. Nobody came. Then it's like, we'll play half of the season, then we'll trade all our dudes for Anthony Davis. Rich Paul signs Anthony Davis. This is done deal. Davis will be there by February. That didn't happen.
You think LeBron yells at those guys?
At Rich Paul?
Yeah.
Well, my question is, if you're Davis, do you keep Clutch now?
I don't know how you would ever have gone there.
Because he left the Wasserman agency.
Right, but like, how do you go to Clutch and then go, hey, I have an open mind about where I want to play? Like, wait a minute.
But
you're
we've
just going to
seen-
tell those guys that, like, actually, I don't want to go play with your guy?
Clutch has no commission because Davis is under his old contract, which was negotiated by his last agency. At this point, he could be like, wow, these guys really kind of screwed things up for me. Maybe I should change agents again. I don't
think he's that way.
If we
I don't
could
think
bet
he's
on
that
this and CAA was like 10-1, I would grab some CAA stock.
You would future a CAA
I would
play
future
here?
a Davis signs with CAA and fires Clutch stock because this is a disaster. And all it did was it made New Orleans fans not like Davis. It made him look like a schmuck. It made Clutch look terrible. It made LeBron look terrible, and it made all of the Laker guys worse. What was good about this? The only winner was the Widow. The Widow looks great.
I'm trying to find a winner here because I don't think Dell Demps wanted him there anymore. You know who the winner is? It's the Boston Celtics. The winner's the hope is there now that this can be put together. The problem is for the Celtics package, the Clippers pick, they're probably not going to get now as they tear down their team. The Sacramento pick is going to be a lot better than everybody thought. Their own pick won't be very good.
Mark Stein tweet.
What do we got?
1 minute ago. The Boston Celtics, possibly at their own risk, are officially part of the Anthony Davis sweepstakes. Let's go, baby!
It's on now. What if Ainge never had any intention of including Tatum, but just decided to tell everybody that worked for the Celtics to leak it out? Like, tell everybody that Tatum's available this summer and get that message out there. Because you can never underestimate, this is going to sound stupid, but I think you and I, like guys that are in that area, Ainge loves kind of the Red Auerbach thing of like, let's just mess with the Lakers. Now, I think he also wants Anthony Davis. Let's not be ridiculous here. But I think they're celebrating this in Boston.
I would not commit to trading Jason Tatum right now until I see, like the other night against Cleveland, 12 free throw attempts, 26 points. Attacking the basket. The second half of the second season is usually when a guy starts to do this. I would want to see that. I mean, we've already seen him in playoff games really come through. I'd want to see him in another year with his legs under him. To trade a guy on a rookie contract and all this other stuff for Davis still makes me nervous and I might be a homer on Tatum. I might like him too much. I really think the guy is like really, 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 really talented.
Heinsohn wouldn't trade him for anybody. Heinsohn was like, Kawhi who?
Well, it's clear that the mistake they might have made last year was the Jaylen Brown Kawhi thing, which I agreed with. I thought they should have kept Jaylen, but maybe in retrospect,
It's hard to read Kawhi. I mean, every now and then you think you have some intel on something with Kawhi. You just never know.
It's not hard to read? The real estate article that he just bought a $13 million house outside of San Diego, which is like about an hour and 20 minutes from here, where he bought the house. Hour 30? I follow the breadcrumbs with celebrity real estate.
There should be a celebrity real estate podcast.
Do you want to start one?
No, I don't want to do it.
You and Kyle?
Yeah. You're like, well, there's a place in El Segundo here that's not going to get list.
So when do we give up on more trades happening? Now it's 12:07.
Remember back in the day, they used to kind of be caught up, and it would go until like 12:30.
Yeah. Hold on. We're gonna take a break for the podcast.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll come back. Watch how we do this. All right, we're back.
Are we not on the air anymore now?
No, we're on the air.
No, we're not on the camera?
I think we are.
Oh, we still are?
Are we still on, Sean? You? Thanks, Sean. Sean, how you feeling about the Rockets? All right, yeah, we'll go 10 more minutes to see if there's another thing, and then we'll take everything else to the podcast because I want to do winners and losers for some of these trades. The Celtics have traded Jabari Bird to the Hawks, opening up a roster spot and probably some luxury tax money. So that was a pure luxury tax thing.
I didn't think the Celtics were going to do anything. I think they're trying to keep everything for the Anthony Davis
Let's
thing.
talk about the Mirotic thing as
we
wait.
Mirotic is perfect for what they're doing.
If you and I were co-GMs for a team, and that team was a playoff team, Mirotic would have been on our team. Would have been like, oh, we have to top 3 second-round picks? Okay, what do you want?
Yeah.
You want to protect it first? Tell me.
Right.
Let's get this done. Before we hang up, I want this deal done. Mirotic can play crunch time for the Bucks. Absolutely, 100%. I thought that was a more important trade than the Gasol trade. Because they really needed one more guy, one more dead-eye shooter who's not scared, who can have 29 in Game 4 on the road, and has been in games. I trust that guy.
What Budenholzer's doing with this team, and like this age of, all right, how much can we space this out, right? So Golden State would space it with 4, maybe 3.5 now with the way Draymond's shooting has fallen off and the way people kind of don't really respect him as much. But it was set up that you couldn't leave, right? Houston's running the same thing. If they go 5, that's one thing. When they go with Capella with certain matchups, it's 4 out and 1 in.
Yeah.
The 1 in for Milwaukee is Giannis.
Right.
Think about that. And he's actually not in. They play 5 out. So you add Mirotic to a closing lineup. I don't care what he is or isn't defensively. Like, this is the league now. Can we put 5 guys out there that you have to – and I mean, it's hard enough. Giannis can dribble into double teams and still finish over him at the rim.
And even if there's defensive issues, Giannis is so all over the place now defensively that he can cover up at least a little bit. I think if you put – what'll be interesting to me is can they play Lopez, Mirotic, and Giannis, the 3 of them together? What happens to them defensively?
Yeah, will somebody just go ultra small against him to try to get them running around, right?
Because none of those guys post up anymore. I mean, Lopez. What's funny is Lopez used to be.
He used to
I really
post
feel like
far,
an elite
though.
post up guy.
Yeah, but his thing was he would always start further away from the hoop than you'd want to for a post guy. That's some in-depth stuff right there.
I watched a lot of Brook Lopez.
Do you have Nets season tickets?
No, one of the years that the Celtics had their pick.
You wanted to just make
It was
sure
the
they
year
were
Jared
terrible?
Jack got hurt. My dad and I were just watching the Brooklyn games, and Lopez was just killing our pick for like a month and was unstoppable at the end of these games. And both of us were like, "Fucking Brook Lopez! Who knew he was this good?" And then he went to the Lakers and just got kind of misused. And then LeBron shows up, and you think like the Brook Lopez now is kind of the perfect LeBron big guy, and they got rid of him. But anyway.
Oh, by the way, another trade.
Yeah.
The Phillies are going to get.
The Phillies baseball?
Yeah, Sixto Sanchez was traded from the Marlins, I think.
That's not part of the NBA trade deadline.
Oh, I didn't know this was a specific. I just thought we hadn't gotten around.
All trades?
I just didn't know what we were doing yet.
Milwaukee is plus 250 to win the East. They're not the favorites.
But what about? Oh, Toronto's going to be the favorite.
I'm going to give you some Eastern odds now because we didn't talk about Toronto.
No, we got to do Toronto. We got to do
Marc Gasol, who I would have liked this trade more
2 years ago.
Even 2 months ago. Remember, he was making threes in November, and I was like, "Oh, Marc Gasol, fountain of youth." But he just hasn't played that well the last 6-7 weeks.
I was kidding around at the beginning. Well, I didn't think we were on the air yet, but there's always these times like when you're brought in as an analyst to describe what's happening early in a season, and Memphis was 12-5, and you don't know why they're 12-5, but you seem like you have to go on TV and explain it.
You have to have a take.
Yeah, and you're just like, everyone knows their role. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that they're great, but everyone understands, and as you're saying it, you're totally full of shit.
Continuity is important.
Right. Like, they respect their coach. He has a voice that reaches these guys, and like and you just know you're making up everything. Because deep down, you're like, I think they suck. But they're 12-5.
I think they could easily be 9-9.
And SportsCenter has it in the B's.
So we got Toronto at plus 210. Celtics plus 230. Bucks at plus 260. Philly at plus 350.
Okay, give me your Philly thing on Tobias Harris. Because you and I agreed about the price. Yeah, we agreed about the price, and then it was like, hey, wake up, Philadelphia.
I have a two-part take.
This is the part where I wish I were not aligned and living in Boston. Because I always feel the same way about everything. It has nothing to do with that, but no one ever believe. Maybe you're biased.
You mean you and I are aligned? Well, we see basketball the same way a lot of the times.
Well, it's just that Miami pick completely just thrown in. Like, I would love to know what the other offers were. Was anyone else offering 2 first-rounders and pieces for Tobias Harris?
For a guy who's leaving, who they were going to drive to the airport as soon as their season
the
ended.
Clippers didn't want to re-sign Tobias Harris.
They offered him a contract last summer, and he turned it down. So at that point, he's out. So I have a two-part take. One is that
give me part one first.
I'm gonna do part two first because it's more relevant.
Okay, this is like quiz show.
I would rather have Mirotic for Wilson Chandler and 2 number 2s or a protected number 1 or whatever over everything I paid for Tobias Harris.
Because of what Tobias Harris is going to cost you.
I just thought they overpaid, and he's going to be the 4th option, and he's going to need shots, and he's going to need the ball on a team where now they have a starting 5 of all guys who need the ball, who at least ideally would like 15 shots a game. You're not going to be able to do that. They don't have like the quote-unquote glue guy. And if you're just going to have Tobias Harris over in the corner shooting threes and not running plays for him, which I think is how this plays out, I just rather have Mirotic. Because then I have a guy who fits really nice with Embiid. I don't have to give up a lot. I keep my Miami pick for maybe a trade down the road with whoever. I didn't like the trade when it happened, and now after the Mirotic price, I like it even less. Does that make sense?
It makes all the sense in the world, but I do think that there's a way it works, too. I think if you have a stretch 4, like what's Philly's problem? They don't have enough shooters. Butler's not a knockdown shooter, even though, you still have to guard him out there. Simmons is somebody who won't even take the shot. They had rotated around with different things, like Muscala would close some games. Shamit, who I liked, and both guys defensively was a problem. And then depending on how they
Shamit
use,
too.
Right. But I hear Sixers arguments. It's like, well, whatever. He's not a rental. It's like, yeah, but you're trading assets as if you know it isn't a rental, and you don't know that.
What if he's unhappy? What if he doesn't enjoy being the 4th option on a team and it's like, I'd rather go to Brooklyn?
Look back at it historically. for a guy like Tobias Harris, who's good, but he also put up big numbers on a Clippers team that really was void of scores. Like when Avery Bradley's the other guy on your team, you're going to get a lot of shots. Ask Isaiah Thomas.
And that's the thing.
Okay?
He was a 21-8 guy in a team that actually needed him to shoot 17 to 20 times a game, and now he's a guy who's really not going to get a lot of shots. And I think you and I have both played basketball. I think people don't understand sometimes basketball is hard. It's hard to be marginalized. It's hard to go from 35 minutes a game to 18. It's hard to go from 18 shots to 10. This isn't a computer.
I watched the other night, and I know no one likes Jimmy Butler anymore, but I watched what was happening in that game they lost to Toronto.
Yeah.
And if I were Jimmy Butler, I would have been pissed off.
Yeah.
Embiid, they gassed Embiid. They kind of got back into the game after being down almost 20. Embiid was incredible. I have these moments with Embiid where I go, man, why can't he be the best player in the league right now?
Why not?
Is Joel Embiid the best player in the NBA? And there's moments on my couch I'm like, it's not crazy to say that.
He might have the highest ceiling out of anybody unless Davis is healthy and playing.
It's so stupid how good he is. But then I see Butler making a cut. And they bring Butler back in with 3.5 minutes in the fourth quarter. So, of course, he's seething.
Yeah.
He's like, what are you I understand, Brett Brown has a hard thing to deal with here. He's trying to stagger the stars that don't fit well. And, not to make it always about the Celtics, but, when you look at different teams that were successful, the greatest thing about that Celtics team in 2008 was that all of them had accepted failure or experienced big-time failure.
Yeah.
Individually, and they were all older, and they were all over it. And the most important thing from a basketball standpoint is they all played on different places on the floor.
Right.
They all did. And Ray basically had to sacrifice the most. Shout out to Ray because he reminds everybody of that every single month. Now, Miami, Bosh was going to be the guy. Bosh was going to be somebody was going to have to sacrifice. When you're this young and you haven't experienced failure really, because now you're just, hey, I've got my contract, I got my brand, I got my
also, you're going to be a free agent soon. It's like,
you can't sacrifice yet.
Philly,
you don't think of it.
Philly wins. The best situation for them is if Jimmy Butler's I'm the glue guy.
Yeah. Some nights I'll get you 25.
I'm going to do everything I can to help this team win. Don't worry about me and shots. He's never going to do that.
No, he's never. And then he gets back into the game. They're trying to salvage this thing. There was a horrible call on Shaman, an offensive foul call. Whatever. I don't want to get too into the weeds here. They got kind of back into the game, but as Butler's cutting baseline, Simmons is trailing him 2 feet behind. And Butler's like, what are you doing? And then Simmons will sit there and he'll work the post, and he worked Kawhi on 2 post possessions. And you go, oh, my God, this is amazing. This is so impressive. And then another play, they ran somebody in to him and just brought everybody over. And they're all looking at each other being like, why are you bringing somebody down into the post when I have a one-on-one here and I've just won this matchup twice? So I could see where there's a version of this deal where Tobias Harris, just as a player, as a stretch four, he was a low-usage guy to get 20 a game, which is important, okay? It's not like you're bringing in somebody else who always has the ball in his hand.
You're not getting Deion Waiters.
But I'm a little worried that when it already hasn't worked with Butler and the other two guys, why as a fourth scorer is he just going to fit in? Is it going to make them really hard to guard, or is it going to be another guy that gets in Butler's way?
Well,
and that I think are both fair. Those are both fair questions.
And it's a weird roster that it's not very flexible. I like the rosters that they can go small, they can go big. They can, if you have Devin Booker on the other team and he's just hot, who's shutting him down? It feels like T.J. McConnell is going to be more important than I think Philly would have wanted, because he was important last year in the playoffs and that went badly.
Imagine how think about
he's
how
going to have to play in the playoffs
they
now
were
for them.
Better with T.J. in the playoffs.
Yeah, but I don't think that's a road to the title. I just felt like they needed to get some sort of combo guard or two guard, or I would have rather done that than Tobias Harris.
Do you think Harris tells you they're not re-signing Jimmy?
Maybe.
I don't know.
I mean, I know.
They
I
said
know
they're
it's
going
not
to just
going
keep
great.
everybody.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You've no idea if that's true. You make a trade for that, and the guy's like, yeah, it'd be great. I'd love to re-sign there, but he's going to become a free agent and do whatever the hell he wants, you know? The moment he becomes a free agent, now you have all these other teams like, hey, man, what if we do this and that? And he starts looking at it as like, do I really want to be the fourth guy in Philly? Plus, he's been traded 4 times already. He's going to want to go somewhere stable. If you go in Philly and it doesn't work out, who are they trading? Not Simmons, not Embiid. They're trading the next 2 guys that have the giant contracts.
Yeah, right. So I'll get my money. I almost feel like these big contracts now are just sort of like a, hey, do you want to sign your money deal and then worry about the rest of your career later?
We're going to break down the rest of the trade deadline, the winners and losers on the BS podcast, which you'll have to listen to. We're going to end this live YouTube, Twitter feed. We enjoyed having you, though. Thank you. You can listen to the rest of this on my podcast. So thanks for joining us.